Most people do not fail because they are incapable. They fail because they are afraid, afraid of making mistakes, afraid of being judged, afraid of trying, and discovering they are not enough. Napoleon Hill spent more than 20 years studying successful people. He interviewed entrepreneurs, leaders, inventors, and thinkers, and he reached a simple, uncomfortable conclusion. The greatest enemy of success is not lack of talent, it is fear. More specifically, the fear of failure. The fear of failure rarely announces itself clearly. It does not say, I am afraid. It disguises itself. It appears as procrastination, as overthinking, as endless preparation, as the feeling that this is not the right time yet. How many times have you told yourself, when I am more prepared, when conditions are better, when I feel more confident, and how many times did that moment never arrive? Napoleon Hill believed fear paralyzes the mind, not loudly but quietly. It creates logical excuses, reasonable explanations, socially acceptable justifications. And so, you believe you are being cautious when in reality you are avoiding the possibility of failing. The fear of failure does not only stop you from trying, it stops you from discovering who you could become. There was something Hill observed again and again. People who fear failure prefer the safety of familiar frustration over the uncertainty of growth, because failing in silence feels less painful than failing in public. And often what truly terrifies us is not failure itself, but exposure, the eyes of others, their opinions, the risk of appearing inadequate. Society reinforces this fear from an early age. Mistakes are treated as weakness. Failure is treated as incompetence. Trying and not succeeding becomes a source of shame. So we learn to play small, not because we lack dreams, but because we fear the emotional cost of pursuing them. Napoleon Hill said that most people quit at the exact moment they are closest to success, not because they are incapable, but because fear becomes louder than desire. The fear of failure has another subtle effect. It convinces you that not trying is safer. But over time, something more damaging appears. Regret. That quiet question, what if I had tried? This kind of pain is different. It does not scream. It stays. Hill believed fear is not created by the external world. It is created by how we interpret it. Failure itself does not destroy a person. The meaning we give to it does. Failing does not mean you are incapable. It does not mean you are insufficient. It does not mean you are less valuable. But fear convinces you that it does. One of Napoleon Hill's most famous ideas is this: whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But few people talk about the invisible part of this idea. Before belief, there must be confrontation, because a mind dominated by fear cannot sustain belief for long. The fear of failure feeds on imagined futures. What if I fail? What if they laugh at me? What if I try and it doesn't work? But rarely do we ask, what if it works? What if I grow? What if I discover a strength I do not yet know? Fear trains the mind to anticipate loss, never possibility. Napoleon Hill believed courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in the presence of fear, not waiting for fear to disappear, but moving forward while feeling it, because fear shrinks as action begins, and it grows as action is delayed. Perhaps that is why so many people feel stuck, not because they do not know what they want, but because they know and do not dare to try. The fear of failure turns potential into weight. dreams into anxiety, desire into frustration. Maybe today is a good moment to pause and reflect, not on what could go wrong, but on what is already going wrong because you are not trying. Ask yourself, honestly, what have I been postponing out of fear of failure? Which part of my life is stagnant because I am being overly cautious? What risk am I avoiding, even though the cost of not acting is greater? Not to blame yourself, but to begin to see clearly. Napoleon Hill believed failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it. Every failed attempt carries a lesson for those willing to learn. The real failure is not making mistakes. It is allowing fear to decide for you. Perhaps the greatest risk in life is not failing, but moving through it without ever discovering what you are truly capable of.